condition, nothing changed, but he's still not.
Again, so, discounting that. I mean, surely that. But that's the Alter Rebbe can say that. From our perspective, what is the process? What happens? So, I'll give you a simple illustration of this. We spoke about this many times. A person's going up the staircase, going up steps. When he stands with both feet on a step, he's solidly set there. You know what solid means? Solid. He knows where he is. He is not in a shaky situation. And he understands his entire situation. He picks up one foot and lifts it up and puts it on the next step. So now he's able to see further than he was before. But he's not solidly there. And he wants to relate that which he sees, but he can't because he's not fully there. He begins to shake. What's happening? I'm shaky. He doesn't realize that he made a step up. Now he has to pull his next foot up and accept the level and get acclimated, get involved, get completely integrated in a new level. Then until that happens, he's not here, not there. He sees something more. He's trying to grasp it, but he can't grasp it.
So it's good. If you not feel good, it means you maybe you take one step further. Not standing. That is entirely correct. Except it is a very challenging moment, because the tendency at that moment is, let me just go back to where I was comfortable there. But that's the wrong decision. That's the wrong direction. It's wrong for two reasons. Number one, just don't go back. And number two, once you've seen a higher perspective, you can be comfortable in the lower level. So this is, and then Chas v'Shalom, if he decides that way, if a person decides to go down, there's no bottom. It starts sliding down. You know the story, the Alter Rebbe, the Alter Rebbe was a son-in-law of a very wealthy and well-positioned family, the Segals, very prestigious family. They took on the Alter Rebbe that they would support him. He would sit and learn, they would support him. And then they found out that the Alter Rebbe went in the meantime to Mizrich and became a Chassid. And a Chassid was then, the worst curse you can possibly imagine. And they started pressuring their daughter that she should ask for a divorce, but she already knew who the Alter Rebbe was and she refused it. Oh, the Alter Rebbe suffered tremendously during these years. Years later, when the Alter Rebbe became recognized for who he is, so he moved out. He moved out from that town, from think at the moment. He moved out, and he started, Ladi, he started his own place. They found out, they saw what he was. At that time, his father-in-law had passed away. But his mother-in-law was a very wealthy widow. And she said to him, please come back, and I'll support you complete. And you'll see them everything you need. So the Alter Rebbe responded to her that when a baby in the womb is very comfortable. Then when he has to be born, he cries. Why is it crying? It's a shock. Here I'm so comfortable, and here I'm coming out in the world, and I have to kind of breathe on my own and eat on my own. He becomes shocked. He cries. A baby has to cry when he comes out. A baby doesn't cry, something's not right. Because he has to recognize what's happening. So baby's crying. So if the baby's crying, you tell the baby, listen, you don't like it here, go back into the womb. He says, oh no, I'm not going back there. You understand? Once I came out, I'm not going back. The place is too small and I'm too big, The baby all of a sudden becomes big and the place becomes all of a sudden small. This is the process of growth. As we grow, we take on more responsibility, and we, at first it's exciting, and then we get shocked. We want to go back into our cozy place. We say, no, it's not a place to go. And we all know that in the long run, this is definitely the good thing. And we have to recognize at all times, this is the important thing to recognize, that as great as we are, and as comfortable as we are, our neshama is infinitely greater. And it is our duty to bring out the more that we can bring out of the quality of the neshama. The deeper that we understand, the more that we know, the higher that we reach, the more real we become, and the more of our neshama is able to function and to accomplish its task. So therefore, this process, what you asked, this is a process. And the person has to always remind himself, okay, now I'm not feeling so good, okay, that's the time to go. And then this will help me pull up the next foot. We're all here, right? Pashas Pekuday. Several things, actually based on Rebbe Siches, I'm sure you all understand. In Pashas Pekuday, I'm sure that we all wonder, how is it that the Torah, on the one hand, we know the Torah is extremely concise, brief, exact. There's no extra word, there's no extra letter in the Torah. And hordes, many dinim and halachas we learn out from what's called a hint, a remez, a kal v'chomer, a gzeira shova. Because the Torah doesn't go, because the Torah is very brief and very exact. That's what Torah K'b'Shebeksav is. Huh? Gzeira shova. A gzeira shova is when two similar words.
Arrangement of words?
No. Gzeira shova means two similar words are used in two different dinim, So the Torah wants you to learn to compare one to the other. You say it every day. You probably don't know exactly all the rules. There are 13 means of learning the Torah. Shleishas and Midas. Actually, there are more, but these are the basic 13 Midas. Why are the 13 Midas? Because the Torah is very concise. And then the Torah goes 2 complete seders, repeating exactly what was already said before. Parshas Truma is repeated completely in Parshas Vayakhel. Parshas Tetzaveh is repeated completely in Parshas Pekuday. Really, it's amazing. Its mamash should be completely sufficient and as clear as ever would be required. The Torah would said, he did exactly what Moshe told them. They built the Mishkan exactly as he told them, and they made the garments of the Kohanim exactly as he told them. If you want to be specific, you would say he built the Mishkan and they built the garments. Really, it would be sufficient to say they did exactly what Hashem told them to do. If you want to be specific, you break it up to the Mishkan and the garments. The Torah goes mamish verbatim, repeating everything. That's an obvious question. And as we discuss this question, we will realize a certain important principle of what the Torah is. There's a similar phenomenon in the Torah. Later on, many of you, I'm sure, have learned it. Later on, by the Korbanos of the Nisim, in Bamidbar, in Chumash Bamidbar, it says that the Nisim, when the Mishkan was first inaugurated, the Nisim brought special Korbanos, what's called Chanukas HaMizbeach. Chanukas HaMizbeach means the inauguration of the Mizbeach. And each Nasi, Hashem said, each Nasi should bring his korban in his own day. So there were 12 days, each Nasi, there were 12 Nisim, each Nasi brought in a different day. And then the Torah says, Yehuda brought, these were his korbanos. He was the first day, and he brought these korbanos. He enumerates all kinds of different things. Then it says, the second day, Yisachar brought his korban. And what does it say after that? It enumerates his korban in detail, exactly word for word, what it says for Yehuda. Then the third day is Zvulun. He brought the korban on the third day. Again, word for word what it says before. 12 times the Torah repeats exactly verbatim every word. The only difference is it says that this is the third day, and it was Zvulun's day. This is the fourth day, this is Reuven's day, and so forth. It's mind-boggling. This Torah that's so concise repeats word for word. It's not only mamash word for word. So the explanation for this, the way it is usually explained, is there's the Medrash on that parsha gives a little bit more of an insight, a background. Why these korbanos? Why these particular korbanos? And it explains the kavanah, the intent, and the reason why they brought these korbanos. And it explains the kavanah for each nasi. And it gives a different kavanah for each nasi. Yehuda, his kavanah in this korbanos was this. Yisachar, his kavanah was this. Zvulun was this. And it goes through all the nisim and shows how every nasi was actually bringing the same korban physically, but he was actually bringing a completely different korban, because he completed different intent, different kavanah in these korbanos. In other words, what the Torah relates is not just what was being done. This is the chitzonius, this is what appears to the eye. The Torah relates what was really happening. And that's what's contained in the Torah. And the similar explanation comes to our Parsha, to the Parsha's Pekuday. Even though the activity essentially is a mirror image of before, it's exactly the same thing that we were told, but it is a completely different world. Before we were talking about Hashem talking to Moshe. Here we're talking about the Yidden doing what they were told to do. It's a completely different world. What is the difference? The difference is not only that they were doing it. There, when Hashem told to Moshe, this was a gilui, a revelation from Hashem to Moshe, which means that the whole thing stayed on a very high spiritual plane. When Eden did it, then they brought this spiritual plane into the physical world. A completely different phenomenon. Just a little bit elaboration on this. Because that we observe the world entirely from a physical level, so we do not recognize, at first glance, we do not recognize the real phenomenon that's taking place. Even in such obvious instances where you look at a human being, you look at a person. So what do we see in the person? We see his physical structure. You see he has a face with all the different senses in the face. He has a body, he has hands and feet. And this is what we identify. We know and we understand with our seichel that there is a neshama in that body. But we don't see the neshama. And we always have to remind ourselves, there's a neshama there. It's not just the body. There's a reason why he has two hands. It's not just because it's convenient. These two hands are representing his midas, the midas of the neshama, chesed and gvura, right and left. The feet are representing netzach and hoit. And the person in total represents all the koyches hanefesh. And it's one whole. It's one perfect whole. And then when you have this body that is so perfectly suited for the neshama, what is the function of the body? It allows the neshama to rest and to come down and reveal itself and function through the body. That is the big accomplishment of the body. Not how beautifully it's structured. It is that it is a receptacle and allows the neshama to rest and to function through this body. This phenomenon, that the whole meaning of the body is that it is a dwelling place for the neshama, is something which we have to consider. We have to actually reflect on it. We have to focus in and say, what's in this person? We don't see it readily, but we have to understand that is the reality. We all understand that that's the reality. The same is true, on a much lower level. In the physical level, we have a besmedrash. Besmedrash is 4 walls and a roof and a ceiling and a floor. But at the Medrash that Yidden dedicate to get together and daven and learn becomes a holy place. If you look in the Shulchan Aruch, it says clearly that it's obligatory, even if a person doesn't have a minyan, it's obligatory to go to shul to daven, if you can, because that's a place to daven. What's the difference? What's the difference? These 4 walls or the 4 walls in my own living room? The whole idea is that these 4 walls become a place for the Shekhinah, because that's where the Eden gather together and daven. Everything that we do, everything, we think that we are just creating some kind of a structure that helps us. A table. I think a table is just a structure that helps us do our thing. You see that in the Mishkan there was also a shulchan, a table, because a table is a real vessel for the use of for service of the human being, so that he can do his mitzvahs. He can learn and daven and eat like a mensch, all the things that it serves. So that everything that we do are merely means a path through which the elokus, the true spirit, the true ruchnius comes through. In the human being, we see it clearly. The body comes to life. In the physical, the table, we don't see it. But we also know, for instance, that an object that a tzaddik used, we say, oh, that's a very special object, that's a holy object. And the chair that the Rebbe sat, nobody would dare sit on the Rebbe's chair. Not only in his place, but on the chair. I remember there was a Yid, this is many years ago, before Russia opened up. There was a Yid, Zalman Gurevich from Canada. He went to Russia and he visited all kinds of different places, and he came back with a pair of tefillin from the Alter Rebbe. A pair of tefillin that the Alter Rebbe put on. So the Rebbe then said that since he had the schus of saving this tefillin from there, so he would be permitted to hold this tefillin in his hand. Nobody else should touch this tefillin.
The Alter Rebbe, you're still talking about the Alter Rebbe's tefillin or the Rebbe's tefillin?
The Alter Rebbe's tefillin. The Alter Rebbe's tefillin.
I understand, but you said his tefillin. The Rebbe said something like his tefillin.
What?
You said that the Rebbe said that?
The Rebbe said that this gentleman, he permitted to hold these tefillin.
Oh, you mean like keep them? Take care of
No, not keep them. Just to hold them in his hands. And everybody should go pile by and just look at them. Should go by and look at them, but not touch them. There was a siddur from the Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov siddur, Baal Shem Tov wrote with his own hand. And that siddur was lying on the Friedrich Rebbe's desk, tabletop. The Rebbe said that he was afraid to touch it. The Rebbe was afraid to touch that siddur. What's a siddur? He wrote it so that you can laugh at it. So we all understand that everything that we do, this is Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, they're in different categories, but the truth is that everything that a Yid does, every keli, everything that he uses for a mitzvah, it gets, the idea is that this is a keli for it. Even our own tefillin. There's a difference between when you first buy tefillin, it doesn't have the same kedusha as after you put it on once. And it makes no difference who put it on. Any one of us puts on film the first time, the film acquired the real kedusha. Before that, they don't have the same kedusha. So that this is what the Torah is including over here. The Torah repeats everything that was said before. Not in order to tell us that Eden did exactly what they were told. That goes without saying. That's not the point. The point is that the Torah relates. And the Eden did this, which means they have created this vessel, and now in this vessel, they brought down the Shekhinah to this vessel. They created this vessel, they brought down the Shekhinah to this vessel. It shows, it relates actually the accomplishment, what Eden did, one by one. The Torah, therefore, contains in it not just relating the story of the world. The Torah is the world. As we learn in Tanya, that the words in Bereshis, or in Pasha Bereshis, the words that were used in creating the world, these are the words that created the world. And these are the words that continue to maintain, like I'm sure you'll all learn, that these words continue to maintain the existence of the world. In other words, the Torah is not just telling us a story externally. This is the real thing that's happening. These words create the world. And these Eden, when they build the Mishkan, this is what they brought the Shekhinah down into the world, into the physical world. And this is why the Torah repeats it. It doesn't repeat it. It says what's happening. It says how the world was created, how the Mishkan came to be. And it says the Mishkan came to be. When you learn this Inyan and you reflect on it, you realize, we always think that the Torah talks about the time of the Moshe Rabbeinu, and even build the Mishkan, and came out of Mitzrayim, build the Mishkan, and came to Eretz Yisrael, and then there is the Tanakh, all kinds of different, the different periods of Jewish life, and at some point in time, it finishes, right? The Tanakh finishes at some point in time. After the building of the second Beis Hamikdash, that's the end of Tanakh. So then it would seem to be that our generation, is not mentioned in the Torah. We are outside of the Torah. Not true. We are right there in the Torah. Because everything that Eden will do throughout all times is contained in that narration, in that thing where it says that they build the Mishkan. What are we doing? What do we continue to do throughout the ages? We are preparing and building the Beis Hamikdash. We're preparing the world. We're building the Beis Hamikdash. This is a continuation of what is Pasha by Avayagel and Pasha Pekuday. So all of us and everything that we do is already contained in the Torah. We're always part of the Torah. We're never outside of it. The end of the Pasha, Pekuday, which is also the end of Chumash Shmois, it says that the heavenly cloud, the godly cloud, was on the Mishkan, And then it says that accompanied Eden throughout the desert, the cloud and the pillar of fire. And in the end, the last words is l'chol maseihem, through all their journeys. L'chol maseihem, all their journeys. You will come to the Parsha end. And these maseihem, this word maseihem means, masa means a journey, travel. But actually, it's not referring only to the travel. The masa, as you will learn later on, masa in the Torah is called not just the journey, but it's called the resting place. When they encamped in a certain place, this is called also a masa. This is like through the journey. This is the first journey. This is the second journey. The place where they rested, where they stopped, is called the journey. So there were two parts to the journey. There was a place where they rested, and then from that place they traveled further, and then they rested in the next place. Then from that place they rested, traveled later, and rested in the next place. And the interesting thing is that the Torah refers to the resting place not as Chaniya, but as Masa. Not as a resting place, but as a travel, as a journey. Now, what's implied in this? What do we see in this? How is Chaniya a journey? So normally we would say that since this place that we rested was a temporary break in the journey, only to pick up further, to go further. So therefore this is all part of the journey.
Right.
Yes.
Excuse me, what is pick up further?
Pick up further, to start again,
Okay.
to go on further to the next step. But there is a deeper insight in this. Everything in the world, is only what's called a means for an end. It doesn't have its own purpose. It says that the whole world, like maybe I mentioned it many times, the whole world was created for the human being. Not for its own purpose. It is for the human being and for the Yid. The Yid, he is created for his own purpose. This is the only thing in the world. It says, Bereshis, Bishvil Yisrael Shenikra Bereshis, Bishvil HaTorah. These are the real purposes. These are the real things in the world. Everything else is only to make it possible for the Yidden to accomplish their task, but not for its own sake. There is no purpose in itself for anything in the world, except for the fact that it's useful for the Yidden to be able to do their thing. Yidden, on the other hand, they are the true purpose of the world itself. Now, Yidden, like we say, there's journeys. Every Yid, like you mentioned before, like we discussed in the beginning before, a Yid doesn't stay on one place. He's constantly moving. So which part of this Yid is the purpose for which he was created. The part that he's going to reach tomorrow, or the part that he reached today, or the part that he's going to reach in 120 years. Which part?
All three.
Huh?
All three.
All three. If, when he reached today, he first has to go from today, go to tomorrow. So then the today is not a real accomplishment. It's only preparation for tomorrow. And tomorrow is only preparation for the next day. So when is the real accomplishment? When is the real thing? Mashiach is the real thing. He's right. So I want to give you the brief of it, and then discuss it. The point over here is the reason that the rest place is called Masa is that the rest itself is a full-fledged accomplishment. It is not just for the next step. This is already an accomplishment in itself. I have reached my destination. And the fact that I'm going to have to go further, that's a completely new thing. First, I want to give an illustration of the principle, and then I'll discuss it a little bit from a richer perspective. Everything that we learn, each one of you, I'm sure, I certainly know myself, you learn something and you have an idea what it means. Then you learn it again and you realize, it's completely something different. You learn it a third time, it's totally something different. And you learn it 100th time, it is every time something different. So if it is something different, which means that which I learned at first is insignificant relative to the real thing. So what was the significance of that learning? Is it real learning? Did I learn Torah? Or was I just playing a game? So we say, you should understand. At every level that you understand Torah, that you learn Torah, this is a real accomplishment. It's a real learning. The fact that then afterwards you can go further and higher, that's because you can go further and higher. But what you accomplished yesterday is a real full-fledged accomplishment. I want to give you an illustration of this, which we'll all very clearly, readily understand. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, when you first learn it, what does it mean? It means that God created the heavens and the earth. And then the heavens and the earth continue to be because God created them. Comes the Alter Rebbe in Tanya and explains, based on the Baal Shem Tov. No, that's not what it means. What it means is that God continues to create the Shemayim worlds. Nothing exists on its own. And if Hashem should cease to create, then nothing will continue to exist. So now, Bereshis Bara Elokim Hashemayim v'Haaretz now has a completely different meaning. Not that Hashem once created, but that the beginning of everything is that to know that Hashem creates the world. That's the beginning. So now compare that with our original understanding how Hashem created the world. It's two different worlds, two different concepts. But nevertheless, we can readily understand, readily see that even the understanding that Hashem created the world is also a Torah concept. That's not the way the world sees it. It's also a Torah concept. It's also a breakthrough. It's also a godly revelation. If a person should reflect that the world that he sees is not a world that exists on its own, or existed on its own. Like in today's world, there's it's evolutionized and all that. But he understands, no, everything that exists, Hashem created it. Even if before he learns Tanya, before he knows that this creation is a continuous, constant creation. It's a tremendous, tremendous revelation, tremendous concept. And in this understanding, there is really a godly presence. In other words, what we are saying is that the significance of our learning Torah, is not merely how smart we are and how well we figure things out. But everything that we learn, even on the most fundamental level, we are already revealing godly presence in the world. No matter how much we have, how far we go. And the whole phenomenon of learning Torah of our doing mitzvahs is not just how smart we are and how much wisdom we acquire, but that we are, by our learning, we are defining the world, how this is a godly world. And in that respect, even if the most fundamental understanding has that effect. Like I pointed out in Bereshit Bara Elokim, how many people in the world can think of the fact that Hashem created the world? That's very simple. Surely there is much deeper significance to this. From this you go to the next step and go to the next step infinitely. But the very fundamental, the very first step is also valid. It's also an accomplishment. It's also a building of the Mishkan. It's also a masa. Also a journey. It's not just withholding, chaniyah, that you rest and you don't accomplish anything in golus. No, you're accomplishing. You're bringing, you're revealing godness in the world. And in order to understand even that most fundamental concept, you have to relate to Hashem. This, I believe, is a very important principle to understand. Because I'm sure many of us are learning, and then we get disappointed when we realize I didn't really understand the full the full impact and the full significance of what I learned yesterday. So does that mean that yesterday I wasted my time? I understood it wrong. Doesn't mean that at all. Any way that a person understands Torah, in the Torah context, he is saying the truth. This is what the Gemara says. Eilu vo'eilu divrei Elokim chayim. You all know what that quote is? Everybody knows what that means? Eilu vo'eilu divrei Elokim chayim. The Gemara says, when there are many opinions in the Gemara, in Halacha, And the halacha, the final halacha, is going to be according to one of the opinions. But Eila V'Eila, all of the opinions are God's word. Divrei Elokim Chai. Because they all reveal godliness in the world, each one in their own way. The fact that the halacha is going to be in one way, that's a different level. But that is also a perfectly, completely valid level. And thus, as we are struggling, and we start from the most fundamental and the lowest level of understanding, and we know that we don't understand it at a higher level. We understand it on a very fundamental level. We say, what am I doing? I'm not a child, I'm an adult. I want to do something real. So we have to understand that when we are learning, and we're learning with a true dedication, we're learning it in order to understand Torah, not because we want to show off our wisdom. You want to understand Torah, any way that we understand Torah, at any level that we understand Torah, even if we do not understand it fully, we are understanding Torah. And there is a profound and very great significance in that understanding. And that understanding is also part of Torah, part of the effort of building the Mishkan, of building the Beis Hamikdash, part of the effort of breaking through the darkness and the obstacles of the world. Both in terms of the world and in terms of ourselves. Because, as we said before, we were discussing that the whole process is to reveal and to allow the neshama to shine through our body, to shine through in our intellect, in our midas, in our heart. And every step of the way that is part of this process, every step of the way is another shine, another illumination, another light coming through. So that this, in every fundamental, every step is an accomplishment in itself. This is what we said in the beginning, that Yidden are not here for some other purpose. They're for themselves. At every level, they are there for themselves. It's an accomplishment in for itself. However, a Yid understands Torah, that's an accomplishment in itself. You would say, what's the purpose of us learning Torah if there are people like the Rebbe who learn Torah on a completely different level? So what's my purpose? What do I accomplish? Every way, every level that we are to learn Torah, we are accomplishing. We are revealing godliness in our own neshama, from our own neshama, in our own goof, and also in our world. This is why every one of us, before we learn Torah, even on the most simple, mental level, we have to make a bracha on the Torah, Bichas HaTorah. And before we say Bichas HaTorah, we're not allowed to say it. And when we start comparing the way we understand Torah with the Rebbe understand Torah, that's not Torah. No, it is Torah. It's the real thing. And as I'm always, making the point here, you should understand how real and significant every day and every moment and every effort that we have over here. Every individual need. Nobody is discounted. There is in a final note, also in relation to this, you know that there were two people charged with building the Mishkan.
Betzalel from the Shevet Yehuda, and Oholiav from the Shevet Dan. And Rashi says that what are these two Shvatim? Yehuda is the highest. Yehuda is the ruler, is the king of a Shvatim. Right? Yehuda, right? And Dan is the lowest of all the Shvatim. And Hashem joined these two.
What's a Shvatim?
I'm sorry?
What is that?
Shvatim, tribes. Yehuda is the highest of the tribes. He is the king of the tribes. And Dan is the lowest of the tribes. And the two people who were charged with building the Mishkan were representatives from Yehuda and from Dan together. So Rashi, right away, Rashi says that this is to show that by Hashem everybody is equal. But then there's an interesting thing. It says in the Gemara in Yerushalmi that in Pashas Pekuday, if you will take a look, it's an interesting thing. In Pashas Pekuday, everything that they made, when they made the Orim, when they made the Choshen, the Ephod, everything, at the end of that it says, Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe. Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe, as Hashem commanded Moshe. Repeats it many, many times, after every little few psukim. Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe. So it says in Yerushalmi that there are 18 times Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe. And corresponding to these 18 times, the Chachomim established the 18 brachas of Shmoneh Esrei. Okay, 18 brachas corresponding. But then, the question is that there's a question that actually 19 times Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe. So why 18 brachas? It says because the first time Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe is before Oholiav was included. And we count only those Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe after Oholiav, who is from Shevet Dan, was included. Only when Yehuda was joined with Dan, that's what we count. And before Oholiav was joined, we don't count. So the question is why? Yehuda by himself is this is the real thing. On the contrary, from davening and tefillah David, that pertains to Yehuda more than anybody else. And the answer is precisely what we discussed. That yes, there is tefillah on the high level of Yehuda, but ultimately it has to come down to the lowest level. And the Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe, that correspondingly we have the tefillahs, the Shmoneh Esrei, is only when Yehuda was joined with the Oholiav. Because, again, what we said before, at any level, however you learn, if you learn Breishis, Baruch Hashem Hashemayim V'Zoretz in the simplest levels, you are then revealing godliness in the world. Even though that's not where you should stop. You should continue to learn further and deeper. But it's an accomplishment all in itself.
Yerushalmi says because 19 times he says Kasher Tziva Hashem es Moshe, but it's no 19, he says
18. We only count 18 of the 19.
So how you get one more? How you get one more? Because
what do you mean? How do you get one more?
it's one is missing. It's only 18 over there.
Right.
No, there really is 19.
There is 19.
Ah.
There is 19, but the first one we don't count.
Because of the shutdown.
Because Yehuda was by himself, because Dan wasn't joined in yet. We have to understand the significance and the meaning of what it means to learn Torah at every level.
And this is what we spoke right before today's talk. When you learn it at the most simplest level, you are revealing an aspect of your neshama. If you really understand it, the aspect of even at this simplest level, by virtue of the fact that you're revealing that aspect, that insight, this allows you to go to make the next step. And then it continues on.
Alright. If a person learn specific matter and reach a very deep appreciation, and then review the matter several times and always conclude with the same appreciation, we can say that something is wrong with his learn?
No, I don't understand. Say again. You learn something.
You learn several times one matter, and always you get the same conclusion.
Uh-huh.
We can conclude that this person is doing something wrong. It's necessary every time that you review one matter reach a different appreciation.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Let me tell you something. There is no such thing. It's impossible that a person should learn 2 times the same thing and should have exactly the same understanding. Excuse me? It just doesn't happen. The only way that can happen is if he doesn't learn it, just says the words. But if he learns it over again and understands it again, there's no question he's going to have a better understanding of it. And there's no question about it. You try it, you'll see. And the truth is, if you learn the second time, it's a completely different clarity and different insight than the first time. And the third time, and the 100th time, there's always a different clarity.
I have a question. If a person is not gonna have so much time to learn in yeshiva, like a whole life, a whole normal childhood in yeshiva or anything, less years, and being that data is so vast, it's like it's infinite, even in quantity, not always in quality. So what's really where the insight comes through when you go through everything, when you get into something many times, or it's like a ladder, like you learn different things, and like to build up, you have to learn the same matter over and over, or
Not
I
necessarily.
don't know if I'm clear with my
I know your question is very clear. Your question is very clear. Question is very clear. You have to, at first, you have to go in quantity, so that you get familiar with more and more ideas, and then you have to try for quality, for going a little deeper. But both things are valid, absolutely.
And even in quantity, you have this billion.
Absolutely. You think that the second mission that you learn, you never learned before. You understand it the same way as if you never learned the first mission. Do you understand what I'm saying?
The second mission that you learn, if you understand it the same way that you wouldn't have learned the first one.
Yeah, that's right.
If it's not, I mean, if you don't see deep enough to see a connection between them.
No connection at all.
So
No connection at all.
You take some words that you've already learned and
I
then
guess
But
you're more connected to the Indian of Torah.
That's right. You understand it much better, but differently. No question about it.
So you're
The more
saying-
right now, if you were to learn something that you never learned before, do you think you will understand it the same way as when you first started learning?
No.
Okay. Baruch Hashem.
It depends what.
But probably if the person learn 10 times and then one more time, this one more time probably be the same that the number 10.
No, it's not. It's not going to be the same.
you learn 101 times, it's the same as the 100th time.
What?
Even if you learn 101 times, it's the same as the 100th time. At that time, it surely doesn't matter. Then you're just bored.
The thing is, it's hard to learn it after you already learned it.
Yeah, that's something else already. You're not so enthusiastic, but if you learn seriously, you're bound to understand it a little more. You're bound. It's bound to have a different degree of clarity, and like I said, learn over. And translate these words and think into them, and then learn it again. You will understand it. You will see it in a new light. The mind works.
Oh, and how is the concept when the person change the madrega, change the level? Because in Tanya say that, for example, the Sadiq, when change the level, he need leave the last level that was, and in the medium intermediary he is sustained for the low and fear that it was a child.
Mm-hmm.
For reach the next madrega. And the person stammer, how is he the same? The weight the same?
A person.
For the person stammer, no asadik. It's not asadik. How is the concept this?
No, that's what we spoke about before. Everybody got changed. As we talked about before, that during this time, as a person grows, there's always a moment of weakness.
Weakness over intermediate is a weakness.
Intermediate, right? There's always a moment of weakness.
It's the same system. The person changes also the level for the fear and love for Hashem. When change the level, every level is the same. He make a death in the fear and love for Hashem when change the madrega.
I don't understand every word you said.
In the same way. Right.
The same way. Every person, as he grows, there is moments when he is not sure, when he feels, when he falls, and he picks himself up to the next level, based on principles, based on fundamental principles. All right.
Right. So if someone is in good level, is doing well, and he starts falling for some like out of nowhere, is that a sign that he's kind of going higher? Like there's not such a thing as being fine. No, I mean not like negligence, but he's doing fine, and suddenly things blacken and he started to feel that he's falling. Is that a sign that he's starting to climb higher? Like why would he
it's very difficult. It's very difficult to ascertain. Of course, there are instances, different circumstances. Generally speaking, the process of a person's climb, just like in the state, when say you're standing on the steps, and all of a sudden you decide, okay, time to make the next step. Why? Because I feel comfortable here, and I don't see the significance of this, and it becomes just what's called a worldly place. It becomes yeshes, just here. You have to start going further and to see where is the truth. After a while, when the person gets used to a situation, in the Ruchnius, at first when the person reaches a certain place, he recognizes, this is really godly. But after he gets accustomed to it, he becomes worldly. And at that point, he wants to see where is the godly spirit. And that's when he's ready to go further. So what is the meaning of godly spirit? Just like in normal human process, a person is looking for a challenge. Why is a person looking for a challenge? Because in a challenge he feels the koiches hanefesh coming through. When he is stationary, he doesn't feel the koiches hanefesh coming through. He's just standing there. The same thing is in Torah Averis Hashem.
So when a person reaches a certain point and he gets completely acclimated and completely accustomed to it, it ceases to be Avodas Hashem. It becomes, like the Alter Rebbe says, once a person is in a state of habit, he's doing something that he is used to, habitual, he is not an Avodas Hashem no matter what he does. Like we learned 100 times, once he's used to it, he's no longer Avodas Hashem. It's time to go up. To have the sense that he's an Avodas Hashem. So, in conclusion, we should all be besimcha, Ivdas Hashem besimcha, and not be disappointed, chas v'sholem, if I don't understand as well as there is possibility to understand. There's no limit to how it can be understood, and there's no limit at what point any understanding is valid. It is a true understanding, it's a true breakthrough, and in Mitzvah Hashem, the next time you'll understand more. And it's a true learning Torah at any level. And the proof is, like the Rebbe says, the proof is that you're not allowed to learn Torah at any level without making a bracha.